Welcome to a moose's perspective on calling moose. This video will be broke down into 3 sections. The first section is on moose vocalizations and moose sounds. The second section is on moose behavior. And the third section is on scenarios, or how moose interact with each other. If a person's going to go out and call moose, it's important to understand their language, the noises they make, how they speak to one another, and what they mean when they make certain noises. The second thing that you need to know to really understand this is to know their behavior, how they're acting, what's going on, what would prompt a moose to talk a certain way to another moose or to behave in a certain manner. And so it's important to see their behavior, but then it's also important to look at different scenarios where moose are interacting with each other. I think this really gives us kind of the depth of knowledge so that we can speak to them and elicit the responses that we want from them. This video is a compilation of several different video clips. Some of the video clips are when I've been out filming moose or calling moose. Some of the video clips are from game cameras that I've placed in locations to see what moose are doing. I think one of the really cool thing about game camera footage is you can see what moose are doing when there's nobody else around. You know, how they really interact with each other. Generally speaking, it seems like when people come in and we're hunting them or we're calling them or we're interfacing with them, they change their behavior. And so that pure game camera footage, I think, really captures how they interact with each other when there's not people around. Let's go ahead and take a look at some moose language. One of the general moose calls that we use frequently is just the standard moose grunt. The standard moose grunt sounds like an RA or an RU. I'll use this megaphone to demonstrate that. The megaphone makes it so it's deeper sounding and it becomes directional so that you can move it different ways. And so the RA sounds like, and the RU would sound like, and I would say both of those work, but I would choose one and use that one consistently. I wouldn't mix it up back and forth. Bulls typically make this sound when they're talking to other moose. They could be moving into a cow moose and they're talking to that cow, or they could see that there is a intruder coming in to check out their cows or getting too close to them, and so they'll go ahead and talk to that bull. For bulls, they're using it as a warning call, and for other cows, they're just using it kind of to let them know that I'm here and I'm your guy. And so that call gets used a lot when we're in moose country. The next call I want to talk about is one that I call the bull tending grunt. I've not seen anybody else really talk about this, but I have seen it in the wild several times. And so when a bull is with a cow who is close to in heat or in heat, he will talk to that cow using a bull tending grunt. And it sounds like a M-R-A-A-A-A-A. I'll demonstrate that real quickly. So the exciting thing about the bull tending grunt is if a bull hears that vocalization, they know that there's another bull who's with a cow who's in heat. The next call we should talk about is the cow call. I think the cow call is the standard call that we're going to use frequently when we're out calling moose, and it's a long, nasally noise, kind of like this. And that's long and drawn out, and usually that call there tells, they're interacting with bulls and they're telling bulls, I'm kind of interested. Generally they do that in close proximity, although I can say I have seen cows out by themselves just balling up a storm trying to bring bulls to them. And that's usually even more long and drawn out. You find that call most of the time when moose are active, during the hours that they're active, going into the evening hours, that you'll hear that all night long if you're camped out in the backcountry somewhere during the rut. And first thing in the morning, just before the moose are starting to bed down, cows will be calling and talking to each other. Once the sun comes up and the sun's actually hitting the ground like now, generally speaking, things go quiet and you don't hear a lot of that. The next noise that moose make that I'd like to just spend a second on is incidental raking. When bulls are walking through the brush and moving through the brush and their horns are out here moving, it's not uncommon that they'll rake on something on the way by. And the reason that this is important, really, we're not going to call moose in that way, but it could be the case that you're sneaking into an area, or you've located a bull and you're sneaking in, and all of a sudden you make some noise that's like, oh, they've heard that for sure. You might want to just give just a quick little thing like that, and so if that bull heard that and he's like, what's that over there? And then he just hears it, he's going to think, oh, it's just another bull coming. And so that incidental raking, I think, can be used, well, I have used it actually. It can be used when we're in close proximity and we've made a noise that we're uncomfortable with, and we want to cover it up or mask that noise so that it doesn't bring so much attention to us. In a lot of scenarios, we're going to do a full scenario, and part of that scenario is going to be raking brush. And this is a moose scapula that I've did a little grinding on so I can hold it better, just so it makes a better handhold. And so when we're calling moose, you'll hear moose when they're raking brush. It sounds a lot like a big giant piece of fiberglass really hitting stuff. And so this kind of sort of replicates that, but it gives that little bone sound. And so it mimics a bull raking the brush. Generally speaking, I think, at least it's been my experience, that they do that a lot after they've shed their velvet. They do that a lot as kind of a sign of dominance. You'll see a bull moving in and he'll rake the brush, just letting other bulls know I'm aggressive and I'm here, move out of the way. Sometimes you'll see those satellite bulls off on the edges, and they'll be doing that, trying to be tough, but it's a common part of moose language, is that raking. And there's the slight stuff, there's heavy stuff, there's pretty violent stuff, but it seems like most time you see raking is somewhere, it's mediocre. There's some different examples of that in here. And so in this last section, moose scenarios, I touched upon this in the beginning, but I'll say it again. I think that when you go to call a moose in, if you just go out and toot your little horn a couple of times and wait for something to happen, I think that you're really relying upon chance. Whereas if you think of a scenario in which moose are interacting with each other, it could be two bulls interacting, it could be a bull and a cow interacting, but you think about that scenario and try to mimic that scenario, I think that's a lot more realistic, and I think it's a smarter way to spend our time calling. And so I included these scenarios in so you could see some different scenarios in which moose are talking to each other and give you something to mimic. Personally, I think that there's really no substitute for field experience, being around moose, watching them interact, seeing what they do to each other, how they talk to each other. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to get that level of experience. And so what I would say is use someone else's experiences, their field experience. And what I mean by that is I would watch videos. I would see, what are moose doing? Why are they doing it? In the introduction portion of this video, in the description, I've included multiple different films that I've made about moose interacting with each other. Some of them are game camera ones. Some of them are me in close proximity. I have a moose hunting video where I was actually out moose hunting, but most of that is really the camping side of it, not the hunting side of it. There's a little bit of hunting in there. But I would say, if you're looking for the opportunity to use someone else's experiences to gain your own experience, I would invite you to go ahead and look at some of that stuff. But again, I think that when we're out bumbling through the woods, it's probably best to know what are moose doing, why are they doing it, how do they interact with each other. If we're going to speak their language, we probably need to know why they speak it and how they speak it. And I think that that's where that field experience or someone else's field experience is so important. This first scenario is a little bit crazy. It's raining like mad outside. A bull has two cows that are in heat in different places. They're about 50 yards apart. And he's got 3 or 4 different bulls moving in from different angles that he's trying to keep at bay and keep off of his cows. At one point, he's guarding one cow. Another cow bawls out in the timber. He goes to check her out, and another bull comes in to check out his cow that had laid down right in front of him, and she wasn't going to have anything with that intruder coming in, and so she gets up, bawls at him, and leaves in a hurry. And that little scenario really shows that cows are the ones who pick who they're going to breed with, which I think is interesting. But the whole scenario, I think, is just very, very interesting with all the amount of action that's going on. In this next scenario, a herd bull has 8 or 9 cows, and they're spread out from up on a hillside all the way down into some timber, and he's trying to guard them all and keep them all as his own. And down in the timber, a silent bull comes in and starts showing interest in a cow, and she starts bawling, and so he runs down to guard his cows and run off the challenger. I think one of the things that's interesting about this one is it shows that when an intruder comes in to a harem, frequently, and I've seen this a lot, frequently they come in very silent. They're just trying to cut a cow out or check the cows out. They know the herd bull's somewhere else, and they don't want to alarm him, and so, but they're just trying to get a little loving in. And so I think that this one shows that very well. In this third scenario, this is really the classic why we use a call. This bull has 2 cows, and they're separated by about 300 yards. One of them is out in the flat, and the other one is through some timber on the other side of the timber. And he goes to the one cow that's out on the flat. He's got his back toward her. She's right here, and he's looking with his ears forward and listening for that other cow to see if another bull comes in where that other cow is. Almost 100% guaranteed. If somebody slid in there and cow called or even bull grunted, this guy would come over there in a hurry. And so this is just a classic why you use a call scenario. In this fourth scenario, it's just a bull checking a cow and tending to a cow, and we get to see that their interaction that they're making and the noises that he makes and the noises that she makes when they're kind of close to being in heat. In this next scenario, we have a bull checking a cow, and she's not overly interested, but the kind of the cool thing about it is it shows their interactions and specifically the noises that both of them are making through the course of this interaction. So this last scenario that I'm going to share is another classic why we use a call and an example of a time that a call for sure would work. I was down watching this lone cow on a flat, and probably a half mile away, this bull comes out of the timber. He starts grunting. He grunts all the way over to the cow. He gets to the cow. He tries a little sweet talking her and things like that, and she demonstrates that she has no interest whatsoever in him. He hangs out there for a little bit, and then he just keeps moving on. He's just out cruising, looking for girls. And if a person was off in the timber there and called to him, you know, some sweet cow call, there's no doubt that he would have come running in a hurry. In the next clip, I'm going to show a bull. A bull was moving through quickly. I was out. I didn't have a call or anything. I saw it just flash really quickly past me. I called to him, and it wasn't even a good call. And he turned around and came out of the timber to check me out. So finally, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think that there's some really cool interactions with moose in here, and I've tried really hard to focus on the moose's side of calling moose as opposed to the human side and what we do. It's more about what they're doing, because I think we're entering their domain, their world, and we need to interact with them in a way that they understand and in a way that they find intriguing, and so that they come to us. Don't forget to subscribe. I have lots of other cool Alaska experiences. Not all of them are moose. There's a lot of other cool things to do in Alaska, so I would invite you to subscribe and get out there and have some fun.